So far we have covered a lot of the basics. We have a working player, which is great. And we've also learned about collisions, and we've managed to use these collisions to actually make something. We've made this little kill box here that when our player enters, it's going to disable their input, it's going to play a sound, it's going to play a particle, it's going to wait for a bit and respawn them. This is something we can actually use in our game. It's something our players can interact with in the level. So let's continue that. Let's build some more interactive things for our level. In this video specifically, we are going to be building a bouncy pad, so a thing our player steps onto, they touch it, and then they go flying upwards, or really in any direction we want, but it makes them bounce. We are also going to learn about editable variables, so we're going to set the bounciness, or what direction they should go, in a variable, and we will be able to edit that inside the editor. So we'll drag our blueprint out, and we'll be able to edit it. This is good because we could have multiple different types of bouncy pads that bounces different heights. We don't have to write any more actors for it. Instead, we can use one actor and just edit it to do what we want. So to begin, as usual, just with anything else we've done so far, let's make a new actor for it. I'm going to make a blueprint class and just make it of type regular actor. I will call it BP_bouncy. And let's go into it. So to start, let's add some visuals to it. We want a little bit something to represent our bouncy pad. You guys can add anything you want. Just for the purpose of this, I'm going to add a box, or a cube, sorry. I'm going to scale this cube so it's a little smaller, looks a little nicer. And I'm just going to give it a material. This is just so we can see it better. Again, this material does not suit this cube very well because I have squished it. So, when you're making your own projects, make sure these things look a little nicer. But for this tutorial, this is going to work perfectly fine. Once I have scaled it, I am just going to make it the default. I'm just going to drag it over the default scene root to make this the root object because I don't need the default scene root. And if we think back to our collisions, if we look at this box, I told you it already comes with a collider, all basic Unreal shapes do. It's set to block all dynamic, which is kind of what we want for our visual representation. So, if we go back in the level now, and I was just to add this BP bouncy, make it a little bigger, move it up a bit, and we play, we can jump on it. So we are being blocked by this collider. It's not going to let us pass through it, which is good for, again, the visual portion of it. We don't want to be falling through our collider really. But more importantly, block all dynamic does not let us run overlap events on our actor because it blocks it. It does not overlap. So a very common practice in games is to have your visual representation and just put another collider on top of it. That's going to be invisible, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to search collision and add a box collision to this. Now we'll just make sure to size our collision so things look a little right. And what I'm going to do is basically have our collider just slightly above our box. So when our player jumps on this pad, really they're going to just collide with this collider first, and that's going to run the code that sends them flying. And let's just take a look again at that collider. Let's get used to looking at collisions. We have this actor begin overlap. This box is a part of this actor, so it should run when we run this actor begin overlap. Of course, to always test things, we can print it. I'm just going to leave this as hello. Compile it, and we go back in the level. Whenever I jump up and down, you can see that it prints out hello. So it's perfect. We have made our little platform. We know that the collisions are going to work, so let's actually get to the bouncing portion of it. Now, back in my player character, so this is my BP first person character, we already have this respawn function that we have made. I'm going to make another function for the bouncing. So I'm going to call it bounce player. And here we are going to use a special node that already comes with our character. It's called launch player. I'm just going to search for launch. Oh, sorry, it's called launch character. So when I search launch character, you can see there it is. It's under our character, so it's a part of this character movement component. Click it, and we add it. And when we bounce player, we just want to run this launch character function. So there's 3 different options here. We have the launch velocity, so how much do we want to launch it in the X direction, the Y direction, and the Z direction. Z is upward, so that's probably the direction we're going to use. And then we have these 2 booleans, XY override and Z override. So all this is asking us is if we don't have XY override checked, and imagine that we had our X and Y and our launch as 1. If we do not have override checked, all Unreal is going to do is add 1 to the X and add 1 to our character's Y velocity. So whatever their velocity was already, this launch velocity is just going to be added to it. If we had override checked, whatever our velocity is, it doesn't matter. We are going to set our new velocity to be 1 and 1. So what you might want to think about override as if it was 0 and 0 and we checked override, we can just see this in action real quick. All I'm going to do is I'm going to set our bounce to 1000. And let's just use this in our begin play to get, again, an idea of how this works. So first, just to give us some time when the game starts, I'm going to delay it by 2 seconds. And then I'm going to run this bounce player function. So all bounce player is going to do is launch my player upwards by it's going to launch my player upwards by 1000 units. To start, let me just turn off this XY override, then we'll turn it on and see what it does. So then I run back here, hit play, and I'm just walking forward. After 2 seconds has passed, my character bounces up, but let's play this again. And you notice my character is moving forward. It's just keeping that direction. And this is my X direction because I'm moving forward. If, however, in bounce player, I just have this XY override turned on. You see X and Y here are 0. And what that's going to do is it's going to stop my X motion. So if I'm moving forward, it's just going to stop it because it's overriding it with this one, which is 0. So let's just again see that in action, moving forward. And I go straight up. I'm still holding W, but I went straight up. And that's really all this XY override and Z override does. Z is just up and down, and XY is for your left and right movement. I don't want this turned on because for my launch pad, I would like my player to keep their forward momentum. That way they could jump forward onto a bouncy pad and keep going forward. But again, this is something that we can do whatever we want with. Now, I don't want to set my velocity just directly in here, so let's make it a variable. But I don't even need it as a variable in the player. Really, I just want it as an input in the function. So I'm just going to add an input and call it launch velocity, which is the exact same as this thing. I just named it the same variable. And this is of type vector, so we also want type vector. So let's just plug that in. So now whenever we call the function, we can set the launch velocity. So just as we did with the kill box, what we want to do, again, is in our actor begin overlap, we want to first check if we're colliding with the player. Then we want to cast to the player if we are colliding with the player. And then we want to run the function that we have on the player, which in this case is called bounce player. So again, if we were to look at our kill box, the way we did that was first we checked if it was the player using this actor has tag. Then we cast it to the player using cast to BP first person character, and then we ran whatever function we wanted. Let's just do the exact same thing. In fact, to make it easy, I can just copy these 2 nodes. Actually, I could copy all these 3 nodes, go to my BP Bouncy, and paste them. So connect this. Don't forget to connect other actor to the target and the object here. And now this time, instead of running respawn, I'm going to run bounce player. So I'm going to call bounce player. And this is asking us for a launch velocity. So here, in our BP Bouncy, let's make that a variable so we can change it around. So I'm going to call it launch velocity. Again, just the same as this variable name here, just to give us an idea of like where this variable is going to be used. We see launch velocity here, we see it in our variables list. It becomes kind of obvious where we plan on using it. Make sure again it's of type vector. And for this, I'm just going to give it a default value of 1000. and plug it in. Compile it, and all we got to do is go back to the level, hit play. Now when we jump on this pad, things should bounce us around. If we were to bounce straight on the pad, we'll bounce straight up and down. And every time we touch it, we should just keep bouncing, because whenever we overlap with it, it's just going to send us flying upwards. Stop working there for some reason, but in general, it should just work. So now the last thing I want to do is, I don't want every bouncy pad to be 1000. I might want some to be more, some to be less. And this is very simple. All we need to do is first make the variable public with this I, and make sure this instance editable is checked on, which by default, when we make our variable public, you can see it's checked, which is great. So now when I compile this and go back to my level, when I click on BP first person, you can see under default, it says launch velocity. And so now I can change this here. Even though this one is 1000, if I was to make a copy of this and make it 5000, you can see we have two different types of launch pads, which is great. We can even make another copy, and instead of giving this just 1000 on the Z, let's also give it 1000 on the X and the Y, so it's going to launch us like diagonally upwards. But you can see this way we can have different types of bouncy pads that launches upwards at different heights. Let's just test this out real quick. This should launch us diagonally, which is exactly what it does. The other one I'm going to bounce on now, this was set to launch us at 5000, so we'll launch up really high. Yep, there you go. I'm not going to wait for myself to land, but you guys get the point. Now we not only have made a bouncy pad, but we've made this bouncy pad editable. And this is a very powerful thing, again, because now rather than making a bunch of different bouncy pads, we've made one that's customizable that we can use in our levels in different ways. Similarly, again, if we were to think about our kill box, we could do the same thing. We can add some variables to it, make it instant editable, and edit it so that our kill box acts a little differently, and we can change those parameters out. Lastly, before we end this, I just wanted to show you guys, currently you can see here it says default, and that's launch velocity. If we have more variables, sometimes we might want to organize it nicer. And it's saying default because under category, under my launch velocity, it's just set to default. Default is the default category. I could just click here and name it anything I want. So if I call this bounce settings, for example, and I compiled it, you could see now that default has changed to bounce settings. So this just becomes a very nice way for us to organize our variables so that when we have a lot of variables, things become nice and organized, and rather than just seeing everything in one list, we can see different lists with relevant names. One place that we do see this already is under BP in our first person character under the movement class. We see, there's character movement general settings, character movement walking, character movement jumping falling, character movement gravity, network. There's a whole bunch of tabs here. And this was written in C++, not Blueprint, but really the same concept stands. They've given it categories that was not default to help keep everything organized. Similarly, we can do the exact same thing with this category setting next to our variable. So that was just how to make a quick, simple bouncing pad. Some of you guys might find this useful to use in your game, so it's good to have. Thank you for watching.